Morning's newspapers, and joining us are Jonathan Liu, sports writer at The Guardian, and Daily Mail's Ihsan Khan. Welcome along to you both. We'll hear from you shortly. Let's quickly run you through the back pages as we have them. The Guardian goes big on Benjamin Sesko to Manchester United. They also cover James Maddison's awful injury, plus news of 5 Lionesses being in contention for the Ballon d'Or. The men's Ballon d'Or makes the page of the Times. Scott McTominay, one of the contenders after his brilliant season with Napoli. Also, Liverpool are ready to say goodbye to Darwin Nunez. The Telegraph Sports section reflects that story. He was one of the few Jurgen Klopp buys that didn't work out, they say. Welcome on once again to Jonathan and to Ihsan. Great to see you both. OK, so let's start off with the transfer news and obviously the big story. As this move edges closer, it does feel like a case of when rather than if. Benjamin Sesko to join Manchester United, and on the back of your paper, Jonathan, it says United wrap up 73.3 million Sesko deal to spoil Newcastle's plans. So this one does feel like it, he's landed, to kind of finalise this deal. And when you look at now where United are at with Mbeumo, with Matheus Cunha and Benjamin Sesko, how does that transform things?
Well, it certainly transforms the feel around the club. The United fan base that will have been, I think, totally despondent and possibly, at the end of their tether following the Europa League final last summer, the way the league season ended. We'll be feeling that most dangerous of footballing substances again, hope, ahead of the new season. And that front line is totally, it's reinvented. Cunha and Mbeumo, you have to assume, will probably play as the 10s in that 3-4-3 system. And Sesko now as that number 9, assuming that deal does go through. What does he bring? Obviously the physical attributes we all know about. He's fast, he's tall, he's extremely mobile, he's young, he's got resale value, he's not going to break the bank in terms of wages, and he's got a good record in the Bundesliga with Leipzig, and before that with Salzburg. Does the fact that he's scored goals for Leipzig mean that he's going to score goals elsewhere? I think that the jury's slightly out on that. I think we saw with Timo Werner, for example, with Christopher Nkunku, that the style of football that Leipzig play and the sort of teams that you come up against in the Bundesliga, it's not automatically transferable to the Premier League. You look at how Højlund's figures dropped off when he came to the Premier League. You look at other big number 9s who have come from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, and it's not a done deal. For every Haaland, there's a Füllkrug. So what I would say is that for Sesko, the ceiling is quite high. I mean, he's obviously been on the radar for a lot of Premier League teams, a lot of really good Premier League teams for some years now. The fact that nobody has taken a gamble on him yet at this kind of money, and United have, suggests that it is a gamble of sorts. So it's one that, if it does pay off, it's obviously huge for them. United fans will be extremely, extremely gratified. I think that they've managed to beat off the competition of Newcastle. Whether he's going to be a guaranteed success, I think that's the sort of thing that only time's going to tell.
Yeah, if we look at the back page of the Times sports section with the headline, United take spending past £200 million. It's a piece from friend of the show, Charlotte Dunker. And talking about the numbers here, we're talking about whether it pays off, Jonathan, but Ihsan, to you, £66.3 million is the initial fee, 7.4 million is the add-ons potentially, is what they're reporting. Does that feel like, a fair price for a young but unproven player in the Premier League, at least? And it feels, in terms of United's overall spending, now that would take it up to around £214 million.
I think overall it's a good piece of business. You only have to look at last summer and even this window in terms of Arsenal. Sesko was right up there as Arsenal's main priority for their striker targets, and one of the main factors as to why they've not gone for Sesko and put their eggs in the basket of Victor Gyökeres was just how hard it was to deal with RB Leipzig on this deal, because RB Leipzig last summer extended Sesko's contract to 2029. they had all the bargaining power and they didn't need to sell him, which made any deal such a difficult prospect. So the fact that Man United have been able to get in there and obviously ward off Newcastle, but also find a way to get this done, I think it's a good piece of business overall. And you only have to look at the intricacies of the deal too, like the extensive add-ons and the fact that both clubs have even agreed to have a friendly at some point too. So it definitely will have been a complex deal, but one that Man United have got over the line, have got done. And it's, I know other teams have obviously looked at him and not signed him, but the fact that Man United, have beaten other teams to this, it's a good sign.
What does it mean for the future of Rasmus Højlund, Jonathan, and also potentially, I know it's not his main position, but Alejandro Garnacho, in terms of just the shifting of those forward positions?
Yeah, I mean, you would assume that if United want to do any more business this window, they will need to shift players like Garnacho, and obviously the ones that we know of like Sancho and Anthony. In terms of Højlund, I would like to see him stay and fight for his place. I mean, I know we talked about him. We talked about him last week as his form in pre-season. Scoring one off his shin and one off his shoulder. Obviously the kind of goals that weren't going in for him last season. But I would like to see him stay and fight for his place. Sesko is no, like we said, he's no guarantee to find his feet immediately. Højlund, he's clearly a competent striker. He is confident of earning his place and competing on equal terms with him. And I think if he does go, and Newcastle are looking for a striker in this window, it does feel like one of those where it could be he could get more chances than he thinks, especially if there are injuries, especially if there are opportunities for him in other competitions. Højlund, he's not worked. I think it's fair to say he's not adapted to the Premier League. I think it was 4 goals in 32 games last season. But if he wants to stay, and if he does have that competition, if he's not, I guess, wedded to playing every single game and leading the line at an age where he probably wasn't ready to do so, I think you could actually see him develop in a way that he maybe hasn't done so far.
If we look in the inside pages of the Telegraph Sports section, Ihsan, they say that more signings are planned to follow this £214 million spree. And it always seemed the way that, yes, of course, they can sell more players, but it seemed like it might be the 9 or the 6. Well, the 9 is almost there. And in terms of the 6, Carlos Baleba from Brighton, do they head there next? Or Donnarumma as a goalkeeper? What do you think?
Well, I think if they're going in this same vein, then yes, they've now arguably completed the front line if this deal with Sesko is done, which will be done. So the next bits now are to look at, as you say, the midfield and the goalkeeping area. And if them areas get done too, United are looking at like a totally different prospect to last season. You only have to look at the recent interview Amorim gave to the written press just through the week, where he speaks about wanting to be in charge of United for the next decade or so, and all this optimism he has for the team. It's all just words for now, but now he's actually got players there to show for that potential improvement. So in terms of mood and for the fans going into this new season, it's a real boost, and now there's these other areas to address too.
Obviously, this is just the start of things. It appears, at least transfer-wise, turning around for Manchester United. Amorim now able to really form the squad in the image that he wants. Also in the Telegraph, Liverpool. And in contrast, for them, the backing has been there. Arne Slot really now making the most of a significant budget. But also, it's not just the spend, it's the return, Jonathan. And what do you make of the value they've got from Darwin Nunez's departure to Al Hilal?
Yeah, I mean, I know Liverpool will bank a loss on that. I mean, I think the figure appears to be somewhere in the 40-45 million pound region in terms of a transfer fee, depending on what source you consult, and that is quite a significant hit. And yet, the fact that Liverpool would almost be grateful to get that sort of money for Darwin does suggest what an underwhelming buy he's been. I think he was bought in the same summer that City signed Haaland, and I think a lot of hope was invested in him that he would be Liverpool's Haaland. And, Liverpool don't play the same way. They didn't need that sort of player in the way that City ended up relying on Haaland. It is the numbers don't lie, really. He has been, an underwhelming purchase at Liverpool, but I think he goes with a lot of goodwill from fans. He's like someone like Divock Origi, who again didn't perform well in terms of base numbers, but provided so many memorable moments. Who carried himself, who conducted himself, I think, in a very admirable way, despite not getting the opportunities that he would have liked. I think he does go with a lot of goodwill. And in terms of where it leaves that Liverpool front line, it does leave them, I think, a little bit short. And it's been a quite an extraordinary summer of change and turmoil and upheaval in that Liverpool front line. In that you may well see 3 or 4 players coming in, or 3 or 4 players going. Diaz is gone. Nunez is gone. Obviously, Diogo Jota has very tragically gone, and so that is a huge upheaval and a huge period of adaptation that front line needs to go through. And I do think it leaves them slightly short, because there's no way Salah is going to be able to carry the workload that he did last season with AFCON coming up this summer. That puts a huge amount of onus on like the likes of Ekitike and Gakpo. So I think it does leave them a little bit short in that area, and whether they now turn their focus towards Isak, I think is going to be one of the consuming storylines between now and the rest of the window.
Yeah, absolutely. 25 days to go and plenty of stories still to be told. OK, gents, thank you very much indeed for the moment. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories making the morning's newspapers, including this in the Telegraph. Chelsea's interest in Alejandro Garnacho is discussed, along with that ACL injury to Tottenham Hotspur's James Maddison. Stay with us.